Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be doing my Bookish holiday gift guide, and so this is something that I do every year where I give book suggestions for people if they're looking for, the bookworm in their life. So I think especially going into 2021, I feel like we're continuing spending time at home as we overcome the pandemic. So I feel like the book is a perfect gift because it distracts your mind. It kind of it takes you to another world and you can kind of forget what's kind of going on around you. So I have a smorgasbord of books here that I want to talk about. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. If you have someone in your life that is very interested in learning more about systemic racism, especially everything that has transpired over the past year in terms of the racial movement, I highly recommend White Fragility by DiAngelo. This is a book written by a white person in order for a white reader, and I think this is a good introduction into racism in America. It's written in a way that is very accessible to a lot of people. It doesn't get into a lot of the jargon. It's not like at your face. Like, it's very much like, it's short, it's very accessible, I think, to a lot of people, and I think that's the appeal of this one. I think this is a good introduction into reading more kind of non-fiction books about racism in society. And so what I really liked about this one, I read this one, I want to say over the summer, and it basically talks about and the things in here, I was shocked at some of the things that I wasn't aware of, and it's very eye-opening. Like I said, there are so many things that I never realized or thought about that really opened my eyes to ways I've been kind of re-instigating the circle and cycle of racism of our society. And so I think this one is a very good, if you have someone who's very into social justice and wanting to learn more about racism, I think this is the perfect book to give. So if you have someone who's into memoirs and nonfiction, I highly recommend A Promised Land by Barack Obama. I haven't read this one yet. My sister's reading it right now and she's really enjoying it. So I feel like a lot of people will really like this. This is basically a memoir leading up of Obama's life and then his presidency and all that. It's over 700 pages and he has a lot to say, I guess, but I think I don't feel like I need to explain a lot about this because of how influential Obama is. I feel a lot of people know about this, so I don't need to kind of sell it too much. But if you have someone who's really admired the Obamas, liked Michelle Obama's Becoming book, then they probably will like this. So I think it's very interesting. Like I said, I haven't read it yet, but my sister's reading it and she really likes this. So I think it'll just be very interesting learning more about his, upbringing and his relationship with Michelle. I think that one would be really interesting, and just his time as president and what he, learned over the 8 years, I think will be really interesting. So if you have someone in your life that likes thrillers, I would highly recommend Long Bright River by Liz Moore. This is a book that took me by surprise because I will say that my expectations for it weren't the best. I have much had a hit or miss relationship with Book of the Months, and I was just putting off this for so long, but this ended up probably being my favorite book of the month pick. And so basically the premise of the story, it follows two sisters. So one sister is a detective in the Philadelphia Police Department, and she is investigating the string of murders that have been taking place. They're staged to look like an overdose, but they are actual strangling. So while this is going on, where these bodies are kind of mysteriously showing up, she's also trying to find what happened to her sister. She and her sister had a falling out a couple years ago due to her heroin addiction, and so while this is only going on, you also get flashback to the sisters growing up with their heroin addict mother, and it kind of goes off from there. But I think this one is just really interesting. I was gripped from the first page and I couldn't put it down. I was shocked. There are so many twists and turns in here that I did not see coming. I was blown away with this, and yeah, it's just really good. I think it's a book you just need to experience and put yourself into, and I think this one also talks about a lot of important topics as well, in terms of drug addiction, abuse of police power. There's a lot of societal problems and themes that are talked about in here. And yeah, so if you have someone who likes thrillers, this one isn't maybe psychological. It's not like scary. This one is more of like a thriller murder mystery type thing. So yeah, if you have someone who likes that one, then I highly recommend this book. Next, if you have someone that likes kind of crime series and they're looking to start a new one, then I highly recommend the Nine Elms series by Robert Brinza. And so this is his newest series. It follows Kate Marshall, who was a police officer, and she ended up I guess capturing the Nine Elms cannibal who was wreaking havoc in England at the time, and what should have been a very defining point in her career ends up being the worst thing that ever happened to her. That the media ended up tearing her apart, and she kind of spirals, her life spirals kind of out of control after that. So we follow her 15 years after her capturing the Nine Elms killer, and she's still dealing with the demons of her past and what, like, the fallout of that case. And so when there is a string of murders that are very much kind of copycat to the Nine Elms killer, she ends up kind of inadvertently getting involved in investigations surrounding this, and it kind of goes off from there. But this is a new series. The second book just came out in November, so it doesn't take long to get caught up with the series. But this one is just super fast-paced, and it's just a lot of fun. So if you have someone who really likes crime series, this I think is a good one. The character, especially Kate Marshall, has a very interesting, complex backstory, and it plays a significant role in what she's dealing with now. And I really like the tie-in and just seeing her kind of get past some of the things she's been struggling with for so long. So this is one that I think is really honestly amazing, and if you have someone who likes crime series, I think this one would be a good one to get them. So if you have someone in your life that really likes historical fiction, then I recommend the Lilac Girls series by Martha Hall Kelly. The first book is Lilac Girls, and it takes place during World War II. The most recent release is Lost Roses, which takes place in World War I. And then there's going to be a third one coming out in early 2021 that takes place in the Civil War. So it follows basically a family. So in the first book we follow Caroline, and then in this book in World War I we follow Caroline's mother Eliza. So it tells of these stories of these real life women. It's basically a fictionalized kind of story based on these real life women who played a significant role in these wars. And I think this is like, especially because it's almost like a series, you can also get them invested in other ones if they do like historical fiction, because it does cover the big eras of World War II, World War I, and then the new one coming out, which is the Civil War. But what I really like about this is that the author is able to weave in different storylines, and they may not seem connected in any way. They're just told of different women's perspective throughout the war, but due to, as like the war progresses, we get to see more of their like how these stories intertwine, and I really like that. There's something really gripping about her writing style, and you can just like sit and just totally get lost in this world and these characters. And I really love especially seeing the story of these women told through, like, I guess throughout history. I think is really interesting. They're a very interesting group of women that are very high-spirited and passionate about what they do, and I really loved that aspect of here. So if you have someone who likes historical fiction, then I recommend just this author. You don't necessarily need to read them in order, which is a good thing as well, because like what happens in Lilac Girls, like we know what happens to some of the characters in this one that like plays a role in it, so you don't necessarily need to read them in order, so that's good. So you can get them Lost Roses, you can get them Lilac Girls, it doesn't matter. So if you have someone in your life that likes like adventure, suspenseful, like spy movies, then I think this is the perfect book to get them, and it is The Eighth Sister by Robert Dugoni. This is the first book in the Charles Jenkins series. I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy or a series at this point, but I'm not really one who likes those type of movies, so it was very much stepping outside my comfort zone, but I ended up being blown away by it. So it basically follows this former CIA operative named Charles Jenkins, who's approached by his former boss at the CIA, and he's been asked to find what has been named the Eighth Sister. So there are 7 sisters in Russia that are spying on Russia for the US government. And so there is the 8th sister, who is the person that is leaking the identity of these women to the Russian government, and they're obviously killing these women. So he's kind of sent out there, but it's like a really intense game of cat and mouse. Like, it was so intense. Like, each chapter ends on a cliffhanger, and you get different perspectives of like the cat and the mouse, I guess, in this like storyline. And so it's really intense. It's very suspenseful. I really loved it. The second book also came out earlier this year, and it was really good as well. So like I said, I'm not really one for like those spy, like Jason Bourne type movies, but this one I actually was a lot of fun. It's super suspenseful. Like, I just couldn't put it down. So if you have someone that really kind of likes those type of things, then I think it would be good to get them this book in particular, because it was, honestly, I was impressed, and I don't really like this type of, you know, genre in general. So if you have someone who's really into fantasy, then I would recommend The House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, and this is her first book in the Crescent City series. And I'm like, I know Sarah J. Maas, people like to really kind of hate on her, and I understand the flaws in a lot of her work, and I understand that, but this came out right when our lockdown like started, during with like the quarantine and everything, and me and my friend read this for our book club, and we flew through this 800-page book in like a week. Like, we were reading 100 pages every single day and just meeting with each other every single day, and it provided me with a distraction of what was going on in the world around us. And I think there's something really special about a book that can provide that distraction, especially with everything that we've had to go through this year. And so it's, like I said, people really like, I understand the flaws in here, like they're not perfect, but you know what, I still enjoy them. But I really like this one. It's like almost like a futuristic society, and we follow this girl named Bryce, who is half fae, half human, and she ends up getting involved in these string of murders that are taking place throughout her city, and she's approached by one of like the police officers or detectives in like the society to help investigate it, and it kind of goes off from there. But it was just a lot of fun. Like I said, it's flawed, but it's just something that provides a distraction. And I like the first 100 pages in here, I will admit, are very hard to get through, because you're just like thrown into this world and you're not really, you know, given much kind of explanation for what's going on. But once you get past part 1 in here, it really starts to pick up, and I was just totally hooked. So yeah, like I said, this is more adult. This is a very adult actually, so just make sure about that. It's not YA, so it may not be age appropriate for everyone. And lastly, if you like someone who just likes general fiction, I would recommend The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. This is a book that has gotten a lot of love on Goodreads and BookTube, and I think it's very well deserved. It does have a lot of dialogue, and it explores a lot of important themes that are still very relevant now. So it follows 2 sisters who are from this town that is very based on the skin tone of the people. So if you are black and you are lighter, then you are kind of viewed better in that world, that town, than the black people that are a little bit darker. And so these twins end up running away when they are 15, and we follow their story. And so as these women start to explore their new life, one sister ends up passing as white, and she ends up marrying into a very rich family. And then we follow the other sister, who ends up being in an abusive relationship, and it kind of follows their story over the course of 4 decades. And while this is all going on, you also get the story of their daughters interwoven into here as well. I think it's very interesting. The way this book is written is also unique as well. It's almost told through memory, so there's not a lot of plot progression into the future. We get the character in the future reminiscing about something that happened in the past, so it's very kind of backwards moving. I like how I'm doing this, backwards moving, but I think that's very unique. Like I said, it raises a lot of important issues about racism in America, and how it's very much ingrained into the fabric of our society, and especially following this over the course of 4 decades from like the 1950s to the 1990s. You can see the progression that we have made, but at the same time there hasn't been that much progression. So I think it's very interesting, and it also, just the interweaving of these two sisters' storylines, I think is very interesting as well. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any bookish kind of gift ideas and all that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.